Natural disasters are inevitable. Their effects are compounded by very human factors. Prior to the earthquake, Haiti's impoverished population was highly concentrated in urban slums. Dependent on imported food, local agriculture was in crisis. How did the country get that way? Answering the question is not a TV-friendly task. It encompasses a history of domestic and foreign policies, from trade to aid to war and dictatorship. But many of these causes can be seen in a single grain of rice. In 2008, in the midst of the global food crisis, we traveled to Haiti to look at the politics of rice, how such a fertile country became dependent on food aid. In the wake of this current disaster, that dependence is initially going to deepen. But as relief efforts slowly turn to plans for reconstruction, it's important to look back at the policies that brought Haiti to the brink in the first place, and at the people who had their own vision of self-sufficiency all along. "25 years ago, Haiti grew a lot of rice. So much that the idea of importing rice from another country like the United States was virtually unthinkable. Today, this country of fewer than 10 million people is the third largest importer of U.S. rice in the world. 75% of all the rice eaten here in Haiti is shipped in from the United States. Now, that may be great news if you're a rice farmer in Arkansas or Missouri, but it's been devastating to farmers here in the Artibonite Valley. This used to be Haiti's rice bowl. And now Haiti is utterly dependent on imported food of all kinds. And that means the entire country is vulnerable to mood swings in the global market. So when the price of rice doubled in the last year, the majority of Haitians who live in bitter poverty got slammed. Now, Americans are also facing skyrocketing food prices, and it's an election year. But they're living in a country where Congress just passed a farm bill with hundreds of millions of dollars in subsidies for the American rice industry. On this week's Inside Focus, we look at the politics of rice in the midst of a food crisis, at the policies forged in Washington and felt here in Haiti. This is not the picture you normally see of Haiti, a country too often stereotyped by images of poverty and violence in its urban slums. Out here in the countryside, you can see the richness of the land, the perseverance of the people, and the growing frustration that no matter how hard they work, many farmers simply cannot make a living.
We are going to block that road. We are going to block the country. The whole country is going to be blocked. We are going to force the government to take action for us.
Haiti is in the depths of a food crisis. We've come to the Artibonite Valley to look not just at its wrenching effects, but at its causes. These farmers are at the receiving end of a series of policies imposed both domestically and from outside the country. And people here, far from being passive victims, speak with angry clarity about the policies that have failed them.
They invaded the country with a lot of imported rice. They obviously had a plan to destroy our rice production.
The global spike in food prices means that local rice, already unable to compete with the flood of cheap U.S. imports, is now utterly unaffordable. And farmers here, hurled into the global market with virtually no trade protection, are also now facing high prices for things like fertilizer.
If they can't get us fertilizer we can afford, they better get ready to kill us, because we're going to block that road over there. We're going to blow it up, because that fertilizer, for us, it's our life.
These are not just idle threats. Just days before this interview, the farmers' anger spilled onto the streets with large-scale protests in Artibonite. In the markets of Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, it's almost impossible to find rice grown by the farmers of the Artibonite. U.S. rice, on the other hand, is everywhere. But the high price is just as devastating in the city.
This rice used to cost $17, and now it's $25. It's too expensive in this country. People can't buy it.
Working in one of the country's biggest food markets, FRITZNEL Joseph is on the front lines of the crisis.
In the past month, the president has been talking about the food crisis, but there has been no change. People are still suffering from hunger. There is still misery.
In Haiti, the stories of politics, rice, and the United States are deeply interwoven. In 1990, Jean-Bertrand Aristide rode to victory on a wave of social movements, bringing an end to decades of dictatorship and bringing hope to Haiti's impoverished majority. But the elites who had run Haiti for so long did not go quietly. Aristide's government was toppled by a military coup just 7 months later. Violence engulfed the country as his supporters were killed in the thousands. Three years later, the U.S. used its military muscle to bring Aristide back to power, but not before he committed to a program of sweeping economic change, closely monitored by the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. It was a familiar cocktail: downsizing, privatization, and deregulation. Tariffs on foreign rice were slashed from 50% to 3%. Imports flooded in. So who was driving this process? According to the IMF, it was a made-in-Haiti plan.
As an institution, the IMF, as you know, is supportive of trade liberalization, both in developing and in developing countries. But we do not get into sectoral policies at all, or define specific schedules, anything like that.
I don't think somebody can agree, really, when you have a pistol in your ear. It is true that President Aristide accepted a number of conditions by the powers that be in order to return in Haiti, in order to stop what he felt was the killing of his people.
Patrick Elie was Minister of Defense during Aristide's first presidency. He's seen firsthand how U.S. policy has transformed the local landscape.
Right. It all started with the disruption of rice production through the subsidized rice of North Carolina and Louisiana. Okay? And I believe from the number I read recently, they are subsidized to the tune of 41%, which is a lot, you know. How are you going to ask a Haitian peasant to face that kind of competition?
Washington may export the rhetoric of free trade, but policy inside the U.S. is shaped by forces far less lofty.
The agriculture community have had a lot of friends in the Congress of the United States, and many of them fighting to improve the economic situation in their own states and their own communities. But some people would say, and I probably would say also, that the subsidies got out of hand, and that many of those subsidies made a lot of people very, very rich.
But the IMF insists that the policies forged in Washington are not the primary problem.
I think Haiti's economic problems are mostly Haitian problems, essentially. In the case of Haiti, I think Haiti's main problem is not trade policy, as I said, and I mentioned it before. Haiti's main problems are these really very, very big structural weaknesses that have held back growth.
Effectivement, c'est une politique de deux poids, deux mesures.
It's an asymmetrical policy. One policy for the global south, another for the north. In the south, they practically forbid us from subsidizing agriculture under the pretext of respecting a global free market economy. In the north, they receive massive subsidies.
Imagine the U.S. economy, U.S. rice producer with all their capacity, and now the Haitian rice producer. You put them on this, one of them will die, and this is the Haitian.
And farmers and their families are dying.
I had 4 children, but I lost my second eldest, and I had to send my other 3 away because I don't have any help. I still owe money for my son's funeral that I can't pay.
Here in the Solino neighborhood of Port-au-Prince, Garot Joseph is just one of millions of farmers who have migrated to the city's slums, where the population has tripled in the last 50 years.
When the rains didn't come and there was too much sun, we lost all our crops, and then we had nothing, so I moved to the city.
For decades, Haiti's urban and rural populations have been pitted against each other. Farmers need to get a decent price for their goods, while impoverished city dwellers need cheap food to survive. Nobody wins.
There's no option for us here. No money, we can't pay the rent, we can't eat, we can't pay for the school. Things are very hard for us. It's very bad life.
And it's not just farmers arriving in the cities. The rural crisis has sent a flood of children to urban areas to fend for themselves or work as domestic servants. Many of them end up in orphanages like this one. And the U.S. is here too. The United States Agency for International Development, USAID, provides the rice for this lunchtime meal. It's just a small bite of the tens of millions of dollars worth of aid that USAID sends to Haiti every year. Most of it is in the form of food that must be bought from U.S. farmers and sent on U.S. ships. An estimated 50% of the value of the aid goes straight back into American hands. Even as it feeds hungry children in Haiti today, U.S. aid comes with ideology attached.
In order to be self-sufficient, you'd pretty much have to build up probably protective walls. And our experience as the United States is we actually, our international economic policy is about breaking down protective walls and binding nations more into an international trading relationships.
Are we going to be eternal beggars? But I don't think USAID is aiding us at all, but not by giving us food.
In the 18th century, Haiti was the richest colony in the New World. In 1804, legendary generals Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines led a slave revolt, and Haiti won independence from France. It became the world's first black republic.
Haitian Revolution was at once anti-racist, anti-slavery, anti-colonialist, and anti-imperialist. They were opening up to the world, freedom for everybody.
The response from power came quickly. Under threat of invasion, Haiti agreed to pay France compensation for the loss of its property. That debt took 120 years to repay and launched a cycle of debt, dependence, and instability that continues to this day. That instability was on display in the streets of Haiti in April. The world's airwaves were flooded with pictures of rioting. The global food crisis was claiming lives. But was it just hunger that fueled those riots? 10 days after the protests began, a group of Haitian politicians realized their long-standing plan to oust the prime minister, a key ally of President René Préval.
I think what happened in April was the exploitation of that situation by people who were well organized.
The violence I saw at least the result of. There is something more. There is political manipulation.
And one of the objectives was fulfilled, which was to get rid of Mr. Alexis as Prime Minister.
But probably those manipulating the people were, that was their goal, to get Alexis' head.
In that sense, it was a success.
I don't know, but I have such a feeling.
So who did it? Who organized it? Who benefits from that?
The politicians, the senators, who more than anything resented the fact that Mr. Alexis, looked like a potential candidate to be president in 2011.
On a quiet morning in the capital, weeks after the violence, another group of young men is trying a very different approach.
To us, it's not just a chicken.
In the poor neighborhood of Jacquet is a tiny pocket of defiance and hope. It comes in the form of chickens.
They're like fighters too. Fighters in terms like, human that, Haitian that, helping fighting, even though they're white, but, Haitian that, helping fighting, the food crisis here in Haiti.
LOLO is part of a group called SODA, a grassroots response to Haiti's many interlocking problems. On the food front, SODA has started this egg project, trying to prove that domestic food production is still practical. The profits help fund a network of free schools, where the curriculum includes reading, writing, and how raising chickens fits into Haiti's history of resistance.
Oh, stand up. Let's clap hands, for USAID, because they help us, They help us, they give us food. That's it. I don't think that's not Haitian, because I remember Haiti, Haitian, all these fighters, Dessalines, Toussaint, we fight for our independence, We should fight also to live.
That fight will clearly involve the United States. While both presidential candidates have made sympathetic noises about the food crisis, no one is talking about a major shift in U.S. policy toward Haiti.
Whether it's a white man, whether it's a black man, whether it's a man or a woman, I think the U.S. politics maybe will still be the same. Because the idea is to, defend basically the U.S., interests.
The interests of the powerful, whether local or international, always seem to be well defended in Haiti. The question is, will a new generation of activists like LOLO, with their fierce independence and unconventional fighters, be allowed to defend the interests of Haiti's majority? Today, the interests of Haiti's majority have never needed more defending. In the months to come, there will be hundreds of millions of dollars in aid and reconstruction, and endless promises from rich countries to build back better. But there will also be a struggle over what better looks like, whether Haitians will lead that process, and whether it will benefit the majority and not just the few. The first signs from the international community have been mixed. Just 6 months ago, Haiti finally had most of its international debt canceled. 2 days after the earthquake, the International Monetary Fund rushed in with an offer of $100 million in loans. Initially, this will drive Haiti's debt back up. Under fire from critics, the IMF has said that the loan would be interest-free and that it will work with donors to cancel all of Haiti's remaining debt, including the tab with the IMF itself. After the break, we'll hear two very different perspectives on the role of the outside world in Haiti and the long-term vision of reconstruction.